So look, Sean, I suppose there has been a huge amount of effort over the last number of years since the retirement of our last GP to try and source a permanent GP service on the main street in Newmarket-on-Fergus. There has been a satellite service in Clare going for a number of years, and we got word in November from the HSE that would be ceasing as of the 1st of January and moving to a practice in Clarecastle. Now, as we know, a GP service is a core service to many people, especially the elderly and those with mobility issues, and having a GP on the main street is a hugely important thing to the people of Newmarket-on-Fergus. My motion at the council today, which got unanimous support, was essentially calling for the end of what I refer to as the centralisation of GP services, that we're not moving into the future with a model of GP provision that centralises a number of different communities' GP services outside of that community. In recent weeks and in recent years, there's been a huge amount of disquiet and unease in the community at the lack of a GP on the main street. I and other public representatives, community groups, have been lobbying the HSE for a number of years now to try and source a permanent base on the main street. They have been unable to do so thus far, but I suppose we're continuing that fight to try and ensure that there is access to the GP services in Newmarket-on-Fergus. The motion, I suppose, was wider than just ourselves. It was looking at the wider and long-term implications of that type of model, where you would be centralising GP contracts. If a fifth largest village like Newmarket-on-Fergus could have the GP loss like that, I suppose it's a worrying development for other smaller areas in the county.
And would it be fair to say that what you're looking for as well is for this not to be normalised, for an instance like Newmarket to be looked upon as something significant, as something very unfortunate, rather than it being seen almost as a model going forward, where when it's difficult to source a GP in a smaller area, even though, as you mentioned, Newmarket is one of the larger villages in the county, that it isn't a given that those people will be moved to a contract in another larger area.
Absolutely, and that was another side to the motion, I suppose, taking a county view of it, that this isn't accepted by the councillors of Clare and by the communities as precedent. That every effort should continue to be made in our case to try and resurrect the GP service on the main street. But as we look into the future, that the HSE officials and that the wider HSE Midwest team are working to ensure that this is not going to be common practice around the country and indeed around the county for the years ahead.
How difficult do you think it'll be to copper fasten that, to make that policy, given, I suppose, the difficulties that we've seen in Newmarket trying to recruit a GP, the difficulties in recruiting GPs right across the country?
Well, look, we know, and I referenced it in my own speech inside, that this comes from a national issue in relation to the funding, or to the pipeline of GPs and to the number of GPs entering the system. But I actually think that makes our argument now stronger, not weaker. While we still have sufficient GPs in the system to be maintaining rural GP services, we really should be looking at the model, and that's what I'm calling on the HSE to do, and have been with the support of colleagues today, looking at the wider model as to how they resource their GP facilities and resource their GP services around the county. And where a GP retires, I think there absolutely should be a requirement on the HSE to maintain that service in the village. And the strategies that the HSE are looking at in the future and that they're incorporating now on the ground, I think, need to be looked at seriously for future GP access.